Dr. Nilüfer Ateş from Bozok University, Faculty of Theology. She's going to talk about 1129 and 1717 Surre registrations, recordings in the Ottoman Haremeyn, and also the Haremeyn help and foundations.
Thank you. Welcome. Due to a technical fault, we are now connecting to you in an early manner. Then we will continue with our esteemed professor. We are now back to you. You can start your presentation. I would like to respectfully welcome you all, our audience and our esteemed speakers. And this important symposium on International Hajj Symposium organized by Presidency of Religious Affairs, I hope we will have successful results. I will talk about Haremeyn aids in Ottoman era. 1129-1717 year donation records in Ottoman Empire, Haremeyn aids and foundations. And even though we are specific on our year in my paper, these donations are important even before and after these dates. And as they're composed of Vakıf aids and foundation aids, they have an important unit and important place in the expenditures in the donations made by Ottoman Empire. Haremeyn, which is the apple of the eye of Ottoman Empire, had always been favored by the Ottoman Empire, and they always showed interest to this region, and they thought it was honorable to serve to this part of the world. In order to facilitate the services during Hajj journey, ensuring the safety of Hajj routes, providing accommodation, food needs, and settlement and maintenance of Mecca and Medina, and helping the poor was a part of the practices. Establishing foundations and organizing donation was a part of the activities that were organized. In my paper, I will focus on donation practice and foundation allocations, which is a practice in Ottoman Empire. And in terms of its format and content, I will provide general information, and I will focus on the years of 1129 and 1717 records, and the cash donations and the beneficiaries of this aid, donation tradition and the Ottoman practice. It means money bag in Arabic, and before Hajj period each year, this is the money, gold, and other kinds of items sent to Mecca and Medina people. The interest shown to Haremeyn in Islamic history, the donations organization is a format of the aid and assistance provided to the region. So the historical process, in brief. State officials become the leaders in the traditionalization of this practice of donation. Muqtadir Billah, when he became caliphate, he helped the Haremeyn community, and he started it as a tradition that it is carried out every year. And after that, Fatimids, Ayyubids, Memlukids took ownership of this practice, so it became a political legitimacy, assurance, and competition practice among Muslim states. Sultan Baybars, after he took the Abbasi Caliphate from Memluk state in Baghdad, he started sending this aid to Egypt. And in the Ottoman period, the region's administration, before it was taken by the Ottoman Empire, this donation system started way before. Yıldırım Beyazıt was the first sultan to send this donation. This composed of 80,000 golds. Çelebi Mehmet sent 1,400 golds. Second Murat II sent 3,000 filori golds each year. And the amount of surah donation was 850 back, full of cash donation. And in order to separate it from the Egypt donation, it is called Sadaka-i Rumiye, the donation provided by the Ottoman Empire. Bayezid II sent 14,000 gold to be sent to the scholars in Mecca and Medina. With the Ottoman Empire's after the Ottoman Empire conquered Egypt, the donations started to be given to that part of the world as well. Ottoman sultans supported these holy regions financially. Certain gifts were sent to them, and also the key of Mecca and Medina were sent to the Sultan of Ottoman Empire, and 200,000 filori gold and grains were sent to Ottoman Empire. And each year after that, it became a tradition in the Ottoman Empire. It became a political duty after Egypt became a part of Ottoman Empire. Among Ottoman Empire sultans, it became a tradition and the amount increased. Haremeyn foundations in the Ottoman Empire. Since the establishment of the state, we see these Haremeyn foundations. Also in Haremeyn area, they became quite generous, as they were generous for other foundations. From many regions and cities from the Ottoman Empire, volunteers were mobilized. Haremeyn love for and affection for Haremeyn allowed them to continue this financial aid. Haremeyn foundations in the Ottoman Empire, in terms of their content, we can divide them into three categories. Independent ones, the ones who are affiliated with other ones, and Surre foundations. And the Surre ones will be touched upon in detailed manner in this paper. And independent foundations in the region of Haremeyn, they were allocated in order to cover certain needs. In terms of their service area, the Haremeyn foundations are quite diverse, especially from Istanbul to Holy Lands. In order to facilitate the hardships of this Hajj journey, a lot of aids were provided, and these foundations, they were assigned to provide the safety of the route, accommodation, establishing water wells, providing food and beverages. And in the Haremeyn region, in order to eradicate water problem, they would establish water foundations and kisva foundations, decoration, lightening foundations, education, healthcare, and settlement places improvement foundations were established, and Surre donation foundations are also a part of this. In the 18th century, which is going to be the focus of our paper, in terms of Haremeyn foundations, there is a lot of information and accumulation. In the same century, Ottoman Empire, in terms of economical and military aspects, we are in recession, and despite that, there was no stop in these donations. Resources say that until the very last times of the Ottoman Empire, these donations continued to be provided. In terms of economical means, even though Ottoman Empire was in difficulty in the 18th and 19th century, the provision of this aid could be interpreted as a way of interest and affection shown to the region. Donation booklets, archives were taken into consideration. Ottoman Empire has really good archives in this manner. Between the 17th and 20th century, there are more than 1,000 booklets kept as a record. And our year of interest, 1717, there are 6 independent booklets. In this year, including Mecca and Medina, and also Jerusalem was provided with a donation. And for these three provinces, we see that there were important allocations provided to them. And we can see the details of each foundation. And for Medina, Halep foundations were compiled in a separate booklet. Mecca and Medina has separate booklets as well. Mecca, Medina, and Jerusalem foundations are summarized in a separate booklet. Jerusalem donation allocation is not taken into consideration in my paper, as we are focusing on Haremeyn foundation. So the founders, establishers of these foundations, when we take a look at their sources, we can categorize them under three different groups: Selatin founders, palace officials and state officers, and other types of officers. Selatin foundations. Among Haremeyn foundations, they are in the first category. In addition to sultans, their wives, daughters, and their heirs are called Salatins, actually. Certain dynasty members, from their revenues, they would send certain amounts of money to these foundations. And from principalities as well, these budgets existed. You can see the distribution in the tables as well. Ahmet III. This is the period of Ahmet III, these donation records. In 1717, this is the year of Ahmet III. From Orhan Gazi until the Ahmet III, each sultan provided certain donations. After the sultans are the mothers of the sultans who made the important donations. From foundation revenues, they dedicate a certain amount of money as a specific donations to Hamereyn. Emetullah Sultan, Hamdan Sultan, Safiye Sultan, Nurbanu, they all made donations. And apart from the daughters of sultans, Mihrimah, Aisha, Fatma, they have foundation allocations, and Selim II and Beyazıt II, during their principality period, they have certain allocations. Sultan of Memluk dynasty also provided certain allocations in terms of donations. Palace staff and state officials also has certain donations, and the most important ones are Darus Salih members. They are responsible from the palace, and they are responsible from the annual arrangements of the allocations, and they are responsible from setting of the voyage. In 1717 donation record, Darus Salih, responsible person, has an important donation. Other state officials also have important contributions. Certain people from different titles from the palace and the states would make specific allocations in terms of donations. Esteemed Professor, you have 2 minutes. Could you please wrap up? I'm finishing. In the third category, we have the others, the foundation allocations. So all of the Ottoman Empire is comprised from these foundations, by these foundations, small or big ones. Haremeyn foundations from Anatolia, from Syria, and from Egypt territories, they are existing. And in Anatolia, Istanbul, primarily, Bursa and Edirne are the locations of these foundations. Cairo and Damascus from Syria. So who are the beneficiaries of these donations? This surah. There is a very large framework in this respect. In addition to poor, educators, scholars, many people living in these areas, Haremeyn officials, and there are detailed information on this. And from time to time, they generalize, saying that the local community. So we can say that all of the people living in these two provinces are covered by these allocations. Kabe-i Muazzam in Mecca and in Medina, specific locations were chosen. Praying for them, the cleaning of the Holy Lands, offering Zamzam water to pilgrims were the conditions to benefit from these donations. Cash, in addition to cash aids, there were also in-kind gifts given, especially in Kaaba and Mescid-i Nebevi. If you perform certain duties as a manager, you would benefit from this kind of donation, according to the records. I don't want to touch upon them. Related to scholars, there are quite important details, other titles, other officials and their origins. You can see this detailed information in my full paper. Lastly, what is the amount of these donations? In total in Mecca, 14,000 gold was the equivalent of this donation. In Medina, 42,000 gold is provided. So, social aid and solidarity in Islam and Surre becoming a part of it, and the beneficiaries of this aid is the people of Haremeyn. Thanks to the donations of the Muslim people, has been provided to the local community of Haremeyn, thanks to the groups of people traveling to that area. And in 1517, after the conquest of Hijaz, it became a tradition to send this aid on a yearly basis, and it has been a tradition for almost 400 years. Apart from being a religious aid, it had political, social, and economical aspects as well. It provided to the socio-economical life of the region, and it also helped the state officials and sultans to reinforce their power and their authority. We see that Ottoman Empire has a strong relations to the foundations. These were covered from the foundations, these allocations, these donations. Lastly, Ottoman Empire rendered its aid permanent by establishing foundations. And these donations continued to be provided even in the hard times of the Ottoman Empire. Thank you very much, esteemed Professor. Bozok University Theology Faculty Nilüfer Ateş.